In 1944, Joseph Kennedy, Jr., climbed into a plane stuffed with 21,000 pounds of explosives. He was supposed to bail out before it ever hit anything. He never got the chance. You were never taught his name. There's a reason, and the reason isn't the explosion, it's what came after. Before John F. Kennedy was the family's golden son, his older brother Joe was, groomed for the presidency. Handsome, ambitious, expected to win first. In August of 1944, he volunteered for something almost nobody has heard of, Operation Aphrodite. The Navy was gutting war-weary B-24 bombers, packing them with explosives and turning them into flying bombs guided by radio from a second mother plane trailing behind. A pilot's job was simple on paper. Get it airborne, arm the payload, parachute out before the remote controls took over. Kennedy and his co-pilot, Wilford John Willie, were flying one of the very first unmanned precision strikes in history, aimed at a hardened Nazi rocket site in France. Here's the part that should terrify you. Arming the device wasn't some button on a dashboard. It meant physically connecting live detonator circuits while sitting on top of 11 tons of explosive mid-flight before bailing. Kennedy and Willie took off from an English airbase on August 12th. 18 minutes in, they radioed a routine check, everything normal. Then nothing. No second call, no parachutes. Before either man reached the bailout hatch, the aircraft detonated over the Blythe estuary with a blast so massive it was felt across the English countryside. Windows shattered in towns a mile away. Debris rained down over farmland. Both men were vaporized. There was nothing to bury, and it got stranger from there. The Navy opened an inquiry and found, officially, nothing conclusive. Static electricity, maybe. A faulty arming switch, maybe. The file closed without a real answer. But look at what happened next, because this is where it gets ugly. Instead of a mission gone wrong, the story that reached the American public was a hero's death. Joseph Kennedy, Sr., the family patriarch already grooming Joe for the White House, moved fast. A posthumous Navy Cross, a guided narrative. The family's political machine didn't grieve quietly, it rewrote the ending. And the classified program that killed him, Aphrodite, stayed buried in military archives for decades. Other pilots died flying the same doomed drones. Almost none of their names made it into any textbook either. But here's what doesn't add up. The official report blames a malfunction, equipment failure, environmental fluke, nobody's fault. Except declassified radio logs released decades later tell a different story. The arming signal from the mother aircraft, the one meant to trigger only after Kennedy confirmed he was ready and clear, arrived nearly 2 minutes early. That's not a malfunction. That's a human being on another plane pressing a button before it was safe to press it. A command error, friendly, preventable, and it never made it into the record the public was allowed to see. So why bury a story like that? Because two very different interests lined up perfectly and both wanted the same silence. The military was in the middle of a desperate race to build unmanned weapons before Germany's V-1 rockets overwhelmed them. And admitting the very first American drone strike killed its own pilot through friendly command error would have gutted public and congressional confidence at the worst possible moment. That story doesn't get funded. It gets shut down. Meanwhile, the Kennedys needed something else entirely, not a bureaucratic accident, but a martyr. Joseph S.R. had already lost one son's political future to the Navy's own mistake. He wasn't going to lose the family legacy to it too, so the record was shaped. Quietly, deliberately. A tragic mechanical failure was easier for the military to file and easier for the family to mourn. Two silences reinforcing each other until neither side ever had to say what actually happened over that estuary. And that's not even the strangest part. That controlled, curated grief, the hero's death instead of the botched drone strike, became the emotional template the Kennedy family would use again. When JFK needed a war story of his own, it was PT-109, not his brother's classified explosion, that built the myth of Camelot. If the first American combat drone killed its own pilot through friendly error, and that failure was quietly recast as heroism to protect both a weapons program and a political dynasty, what does that tell you about every other military accident you've read about since? So here's the question nobody answers. How many other technological firsts, drones, missiles, whatever comes next, have failed exactly like this and simply had better publicists?